My name is Mary Bush. I'm a citizen activist here in the city. I have no official role other than I'm interested in making sure that everybody knows who they're voting for. It's my opinion that people on city council need to be able to work well together. So I thought it was important for our council people and our mayors to be able to interact, and you can see kind of the chemistry and how they answer questions and things like that. And my request is that everybody be kind and remember that you can reject an ideology and still embrace the human. And that's what our purpose is today, is to find out about these human beings and whether we want them to be our leaders and what kind of quality of life we can have in Madison Heights as a result. We have two moderators, our gracious moderators, our Lamphere Board President, Tony Austin. He will be managing the council interactions because he serves with Mr. Mier. And Rebecca Chambliss is a trustee from the Madison District Public Schools who's graciously agreed to be here. And she'll be providing questions to the mayoral candidates. If you have any questions or concerns, you can write them on your papers. If we have enough time, which two candidates had notified me that they will not be coming after originally agreeing to be here. Bob Gettings and Dave Soltis have advised after reviewing the questions that they did not want to come to the meeting. So we're giving people extra time, and there's an opportunity for you to ask some questions if things aren't addressed, or to perhaps ask deeper questions. We will be done at 5 o'clock no matter what. This is being live streamed on Facebook and YouTube, and it will be recorded on YouTube for posterity. So thank you so much for coming. Thank you for showing your interest in your community. I'd like to start with a big round of applause for our school board leaders and for our candidates who have the bravery to come here and meet the public. Thank you. Rebecca will start us off.
Hi, everybody. Okay, so Ms. Grafstein, Mr. Mier, we're going to do a coin toss. That's how we're going to decide who goes first. Ms. Grafstein, as being the current mayor, I'll let you pick heads or tails. Heads? Please, I hope I catch this. Like, you'll catch, I'll just throw it, okay. We're working together. Okay.
It is heads.
Okay.
You can go first.
All right.
And it's not a two-headed coin.
All
I
right.
feel tension in this room. We got a lot. I swear a lot of it.
Okay, Ms. Grafstein. The main job of the mayor is to manage the meetings with the ability to add agenda items, etc., and perform weddings and other ceremonial duties. Some of our former mayors have been pretty hands-off, and others have seen fit to assist the city by being our voluntary brand manager, selling the city to businesses and families, and bringing innovative and progressive policies to the table. What do you see you have to contribute to the job of mayor, and why are you the better of the two candidates?
Time starts now.
Okay, so from my active participation in the EPA and EGLE meetings regarding the hexylvanium chromium leak almost 2 years ago, more commonly known as Green Ooze, and the subsequent push for a complete remediation and demolition of the buildings, to my work with the Crime Commission to reinstate the Special Investigations Unit, my idea to institute a hotel ordinance to reduce human trafficking and other crimes at our hotels. I'm continually working with groups both inside and outside of the city to keep our community members safe. I was a strong proponent of creating 6 new emergency personnel positions, and as a result, we now have 3 new firefighters, a new dispatcher, and 2 new patrol officers. We also created another position in code enforcement, bringing our emergency staffing levels up to over 18% during my time on council. Since joining the Planning Commission last year, I've been using the resources I found from my involvement with MEDC's redevelopment ready communities to slowly revise and update ordinances so that Madison Heights will be more attractive to developers and create the incentive needed for existing building owners to renovate and clean up more than legally required, or to sell to a builder who will clean up the area for a new project that meets the changing needs of our demographics, most likely new retail and housing opportunities. Over the years that I have been on council, I have invested my time and energy participating in a variety of municipal courses with officials across the state. I have cultivated relationships with representatives in our surrounding communities, so that we can work together to devise solutions for many of our common issues and ensure there is less duplication of resources when possible. Even before I was elected to council, I've been talking about what a great place this is to live. And since becoming mayor, I've taken that to the next level, touring our businesses and meeting with their owners or managers. I welcomed and met with small new businesses, places like Sweet Delicious Bakery that opened last year, the 24th Cheesecakery that's just out on 13 Mile, and they opened in the spring with Madison Heights as one of their satellite locations. I welcomed Keel last year, and last week, yesterday I think it was, I was back for their 1-year anniversary celebration. Nano Magic is another new larger company that I welcomed in the spring. We're also home, though, to many established family businesses that I've had the opportunity to meet with to discuss how we can partner with them. Cochrane, Nemu Supply, or Nemu Hospitality just out on Stevenson, 11 Mile Truck and Auto, and JJ Castings, both on 11 Mile. And of course, last year, just after my foot surgery, I got my exercise in by touring the huge UPS facility on Whitcomb. Wear running shoes if you ever do that. I've also been meeting with business owners that I think would be a good fit for Madison Heights, owners that I want to work with to bring in services that will help our elderly and our disabled. Medical services, housekeeping, meal prep, and then once those services, those businesses are set up here, they can then help employ some of our residents and they can provide good paying, stable jobs. And then finally, as I continue on mayor, I will continue meeting as I have with new partners to build on the over $100,000 of new sponsorship that we were able to get last year for various athletic programs, a fitness court, and rain gardens.
That signal, by the way, folks, is that your 3 minutes is up.
Okay,
So
I'm done.
Given that we were short a couple
I wasn't, but that's okay.
given that we were short
And
a
you did
couple
all that without taking a breath. I'm impressed.
But Ms. Grafstein asked that we stick to the original plan, so I'm happy to do that. Go ahead.
Thank you, Ms. Grafstein.
It wasn't much.
Mr. Mier? Same question. Do you want me to
Okay,
repeat it?
same question.
Or do you?
Tell me when to start.
Oh, when you start, I push the button.
Okay. So I've been managing meetings both here at work and in volunteer organizations that I've been involved in for over 20 years. Little League Baseball, I've participated in many board meetings, have been responsible for keeping the minutes of those meetings for over 25 years. With the Booster Club, I've been president for almost 20 years. I've been responsible for setting the meeting agendas for those meetings and adopting modifications to the agenda on the fly as the meeting kind of dictated. The school board actually functions very similar to the city council. We have 7 members that work together trying to support our one employee, the superintendent of schools, much like the council works together to support their one employee, the city manager. I've been deeply involved in this community for over 25 years, and I've loved every minute of it. I won't lie to you and tell you that every minute went very smoothly. There were a few rough spots along the way, but in the end, when you see all the smiling faces that have come out of the efforts that I put in volunteering in the city, it makes it all worth it. I have run countless meetings in my work environment, working with managing people that have very different opinions, very different backgrounds, had to negotiate many compromises. To be honest with you, I'm not really sure which of those environments is more challenging. I'm actually an ordained minister. I'm ordained by the Universal Life Church, and I have performed several weddings for family members already, from a simple kitchen I do to several 30 to 40 minute ceremonies that I performed. Look forward to performing many more of those in the role as mayor. In my role of Athletic Booster Club president, I've been on Lamphere stage probably 100 times, giving scholarships and presenting awards to our hardworking student athletes. I'm very comfortable performing those ceremonial duties. I have some thoughts on ways that I would like to make our city council meetings a little more efficient that I'll discuss with our city manager, legal counsel, and fellow council members if I'm elected. Generally not a big spotlight person. I like to work behind the scenes, but I'm willing to assist the city in any way that helps brings business and families to this great city. I understand that the mayor is viewed as the executive head of the city and the presiding officer over the council, and I will be there for any ceremonial duties that are required to fulfill that role as mayor. I will further develop the relationship with our city residents, our business owners, and our state elected officials to continue to grow this city that I truly do love. If I'm elected, I still plan on doing that volunteer work.
Thank you very much.
I guess I shouldn't have taken as many breaths.
Okay, question number 2. Ms. Grafstein.
Oh, wait, isn't he going first?
No, you guys, once you get the first coin toss, you get the
Oh.
first for every question.
Okay. And just to clarify, is this 3 minutes?
Yes, you would ask for 3 minutes.
I didn't ask for 3 minutes.
No, I told you we were gonna go to 4,
Okay.
you said stick with the plan.
Oh, okay, yeah, no, that's fine, that's fine.
So let her read the question, and then I
Yep.
push the button,
Gotcha.
and you start talking.
Gotcha.
Okay, Ms. Grafstein. What direction is Oakland County moving over the next 5 years, and what does Madison Heights need to do to fit into the success of this plan?
Okay, so last year, Oakland County residents approved a Parks and Recreation millage that is going to greatly benefit Madison Heights because we're home to 3 county-maintained properties, the water park, the dog park, and the nature center that is owned by the city but maintained by the county under a long-term lease. And for the last 2 years, the county hasn't hosted their fall harvest family event or the spring cleanup, so I'd like to work with them to see how we can work together to bring these back. Last week, they did host a document shredding event at the water park, and I'd like to invite them back in the spring after tax season as part of a spring cleanup where people can bring in sensitive materials for shredding and also help clean up the nature center or just the general area. We've been part of the Oakland County One Stop Ready program for a while, and in 2018, I represented the city at their open house to showcase some of our available properties. That actually helped open the dialogue with new investors that I continue to have that conversation and those relationships today to bring in the investment and the new businesses we need. It is a long, slow process, but we are getting there. We need to keep partnering with the county to showcase what Madison Heights has to offer. And then in the last year, there's been a lot that's going on with the county and the city and myself with public safety. Investment in public safety really has a positive impact on the health and well-being of our businesses and residents. And in my time on council, we have invested in public safety, ensuring that they have the resources that they need to keep us safe. Since 2017, I voted in favor of a new gun range, the reinstatement of the SIU, new vehicles and vehicle equipment upgrades, improved measures to hire additional 15 public safety employees. I reached out to Haven last year to work with our police department and set up a high-risk response team to help victims of abuse. I introduced a hotel ordinance to decrease human trafficking, and as long as I'm mayor, I will continue to support all efforts to prevent human trafficking and to work to further develop the productive relationships that we have with the county and the neighboring cities to get rid of this horrendous crime. My ultimate goal for that is to have 0 victims. Over the last year, I have spoken with both the Attorney General and with the Sheriff about potential work with them on various crime reduction pilot projects. I don't know what's going to happen with them, but I have let them know that anything that we can do to help them, to help us to reduce crime, especially abuse, especially children. I'm a mother, I'm a woman. It's near to my heart. We need to take care of our kids. So anything that I can do to help them, to let me know. So I've had some productive conversations with them, but again, everything takes time. You don't get off the phone and say, we'll do it tomorrow. I'm done.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Mier?
This one I'm going to take a deep breath on because I got a lot to say. Oakland County has been developing a 5-year con plan that is designed to address housing and community development. 4 goals of that plan are: 1, preserve and develop quality affordable housing. 2 is support capital improvements and public service programs that meet the needs of the community. 3 is reduced housing discrimination. 4 is community engagement. Madison Heights is working on some of these areas, and I feel that it will be continuing to emphasize them and working closely with the county in the upcoming years on those programs. County is also working on increasing economic development and infrastructure improvements throughout the county, as you can probably tell by the construction we have. I'll be sure that the city engages with the county in those projects as well. County is also working to increase offerings to our senior citizens for assistance to help them stay independent. That is something I feel is very important for us to stay involved in. The county also has a 5-year Parks and Rec plan and is looking to partner with local communities on projects like the motor into the movies night they had at the Red Oaks Complex a few weeks ago that I was able to enjoy. I will work to continue that partnership and bring more activities like that to Madison Heights. In the next 2 years, Oakland County also has $525 million in federal COVID aid relief that they will be looking for ways for communities to help communities with costs associated with COVID, like overtime costs for city workers that had to be out or citizens that had money issues due to COVID. Madison Heights will need to work closely with Oakland County to help identify areas where we can utilize that money. The county is also building a one-stop shop to help businesses determine the feasibility of businesses working in this area. Provides demographic on each city and what help the businesses decide what's right for them. I'll encourage our CED director to work with that program and continue to working with businesses to come here to Madison Heights. There's so many other things that I should cover. But a couple of final notes to mention is the county is working with Sheriff Bouchard on a multi-million-dollar training center for the Sheriff's Department, and that training center will be available to our officers, which should be a help for them to certify and utilize their facilities. They're also working on a drone training center, which I find extremely interesting because I would like to explore that possibility of using drones to help make this, reduce the crime rate here in Madison Heights and make it a safer place. So.
All right, thank you.
There's plenty more that I'd like to talk about. I thought I'd run out of time.
You still had some. Is there anything else you want to say?
Good. I'm good. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, well, thank you. All right, the next question. What practical steps do you intend to take to assist our city in becoming a friendlier, more inviting housing market? Ms. Grafstein.
Okay, so since joining the Planning Commission last year, I've been using my education experience and resources so that we can slowly revise and update our ordinances so that we can make Madison Heights more attractive to developers and create the incentive that we need for building owners to renovate and clean up more than just legally required. And the conversations I've been having with investors interested in starting the projects in the city have been around some new businesses, but also there's a lot of talk about different housing options. And we need to continue working on the ordinance revisions to allow for more flexible housing options so that we keep the character of Madison Heights while still providing the opportunities for builders to invest in the missing middle housing that we so obviously need. I've been having the conversations, as I've mentioned, for quite a while, and as we're slowly revising our ordinances, we're going to be more open for the different housing options. And based on some of the new ordinance changes, we should be hearing soon about plans for some mixed-use development in our DDA, and those are going to be providing about 20 units of affordable housing. So all these things are in the works, but they all take time. Everything takes time. And, like this week, we just approved about 35 pages of ordinance updates that we didn't just decide to do that a couple of weeks ago. We have been working on that. When I say we, staff, legal, council, mayor, we've all been working on this, but everything takes time. So when it comes to being an inviting housing market, our housing prices have been going up. People do want to move here. I think it's more a question of the people who are getting priced out, and that's not something that's just happening in Madison Heights. That's happening all across the country. Not everybody wants to move into a single-family home, the traditional 1,000-square-foot home that I have. People want variety. They want different options, and so we are working on it, but it all takes time. And then we also, it doesn't matter what we do if a developer doesn't want to come here. So we need to really keep on with those relationships, and that's something that I've been working on. I've been talking to to developers who are in other cities about what could they do here. You know, one of the common questions I get is there a parcel of land that we could develop? But the city doesn't own very much, and we can't force someone to do something. If somebody wants to leave their property derelict, as long as it's up to code, or vacant, as long as they mow their grass, the city can't really do anything. So making these ordinance changes is hopefully providing them with that incentive so that they'll say, you know what, now it makes sense for me to build, or now it makes sense for me to sell, and somebody else is going to do that. And I think, am I out of time?
10 seconds.
Okay, well, that's kind of it. So I'm working on it, we're working on it. Bureaucracy takes time.
Thank you. Mr. Mier?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of things we need to do with the market, and unfortunately, the first thing we need to do is for it to cool down a little bit. As Ms. Grafstein said, housing prices are getting pretty steep these days. My friends in the real estate business are telling me that cool down should be happening soon, or is starting to happen. I believe the city is maintaining the list of properties that are vacant. I'd like to explore the possibility of keeping a list of residential properties that are available throughout the city, and work with realtors and making sure those listings are made available to their customers, and when they're trying to choose Madison Heights for a place to buy or rent their home. I mentioned earlier that Oakland County has a 5-year con plan that is focusing on quality affordable housing and reducing housing discrimination. I certainly will work closely with the county in those areas and utilize the knowledge that they can share on those topics. A large part of making the housing market more inviting, I believe, is code enforcement and making sure that we're working to reduce the blight in our residential areas, making sure our homes are being maintained and kept up and our neighborhoods are inviting to potential buyers or renters. I also will continue to support programs that help our seniors and disabled residents maintain their homes. Large part of a friendlier market, I think, is maintaining our parks and providing recreational opportunities for our community to come together. Again, as I mentioned, one of the goals of the con plan in the county is community engagement and participating with local communities on community events. So I'll also work with the county on these areas and look for ways to make our city a friendlier place for people to gather and be more attractive to new homeowners and buyers or renters. Lastly, I would like to investigate the possibility of welcoming committee or some kind of welcoming package that we can offer to our new residents, just containing basic information about the city and services that we offer. Simple stuff like when's your trash day and you know, some of the unique services we offer, like prescription drug proposal or disposal program, copy of the current recreation brochure of all the things that we offer here in the city, you know, information about our local businesses, and I'm sure they'll see all the box store businesses around, so put together some packages with information about some of our unique small businesses and put in coupons or something, you know, to get those residents knowing what's here in our city and have them utilize our small businesses.
10 seconds.
That's it.
You're good? Oh, thank you. Okay, next question.
I'm trying. I'm old. Give me a break.
Technology.
There we go. Okay.
Okay. Based on your review of the past 6 years of budget and financial reviews of the city, what policies would you recommend to council to head off the coming challenge of retiree legacy costs? Ms. Grafstein.
Okay, just making sure you were ready.
Oh, yeah, I'm always ready.
Okay, all right, I haven't started yet. Now I'll start. Okay, in 2009, the city closed the defined benefit option except to police and fire employees. This was decreasing the multiplier on the base, and so not only did this save us money, but it's helped to attract new employees. And then about 5 years ago, we issued a bond to pay for our employee pensions. But most importantly, just a few months ago at the end of our fiscal year, earlier this summer, we issued a bond we changed our benefits to decrease our benefit liability by about $42 million. So we're already working on it. Now going forward, any new solution for legacy costs, or as they're called in the industry, OPEB, other post-employment benefits, any solution we come up with, it's going to need to involve HR working with employees to make sure that everyone understands the long-term impact of the new labor agreements, and then still ensuring that the employees are properly compensated. With employees now changing jobs every 3 to 5 years, they don't have the same expectations to stay until retirement. And so this allows for a tiered benefit solution with older or retired employees keeping their benefits, but closing the program to new hires. And then OPEB is not a vested right, so it can be negotiated for current employees who may want to transition to a defined contribution program, with payments being made to a health spending account for future health expenses, or to a 457, which is a non-qualified tax advantage deferred compensation retirement plan for government. So kind of like a retirement plan for government. And then another option would be to use reserve funds to set up an irrevocable pension trust fund with a conservative portfolio to act as a hedge against volatility. And then yet another option is, instead of having monthly payroll payments, we might be able to take advantage of prepayment discounts. So we do have a little bit of wiggle room, but again, it's not just us. This is something that probably every city across the country is dealing with. A lot of this lies in the state. Some of it lies with the federal. So we're really at the behest of what we are and are not allowed to do. About a third of our taxes go towards this. And it would be great if there was a state or federal program that took over this, and then we would have a third of our budget back. But there isn't, and I don't foresee that happening. So we need to just work with what we've got, and these are some of the thoughts that I had on how we can do it. And again, hats off to Melissa Marsh and her staff. We just did something that saved us $40 million. And I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mier?
I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I have not gone back 6 years. I've only made it back for the last 3 years of our financial reviews, and I've looked at last year's, this year's, and next year's budgets, and I have a whole list of questions for Ms. Marsh if I am elected. To be honest with you, as Mayor Grafstein said, the challenge of retire legacy cost isn't coming. It's here. It's been here for a while. We faced a very similar challenge on the school board for several years, a little different situation with schools versus cities. And as Ms. Grafstein said, all cities across the state of Michigan are having to make difficult decisions to ensure that their pension funding has remained adequately funded. So we're not alone there. As for our policy suggestions, I really believe it would not be responsible for me to try and offer any specific recommendations, because I've got a lot more of information that I need to learn on this subject and look more at the long-term challenges. I would need to meet with our financial director and city manager and discuss possible options. With that being said, I know the city has taken a lot of steps, as Mayor Grafstein has pointed out, going back to the bond in 2016. $15.25 million. They've negotiated stipids on the Medicare eligible retirees back in 2019. As Ms. Grafstein said, in 2020, we began paying our monthly retiree premiums out of the current year's revenue. So negotiations with the unions have provided changes to the retiree health care, and it has allowed the city to meet the funding goal of 41% of the general employees retiree health care trust about 9 years early. So we're doing a lot of work on that subject already. Majority of the city's debt as of 2020 was to pay off that, was working on that bond from 2016. The legacy cost of pensions and retiree health care are one of the top major challenges that facing our city and every city really. The actions that we have taken over the past years have reduced the funding liability slightly, so we're heading in the right direction. We'll need to continue to explore ways to make certain that we are fulfilling this crucial commitment to our employees and retirees in a fiscally sound fashion. I just don't feel like I have enough information to offer you all kinds of solutions right now, but I would set up a meeting with the city manager and finance director to help gather any further information on this subject and address the issue going forward and as we need to see fit.
Thank you both so much.
That concludes our mayoral. I'd like to take a 5-minute break for people to kind of stand and stretch, and then we're gonna ask some questions here. So everybody can stand up and stretch, kind of stretch your legs a little bit. We've been going at it for a half hour. Half hour? Yeah, we started at 3, it's now 3:20.
Oh, I thought you meant a half-hour break.
No, a 5-minute break if we need it that long. So one of the things that I forgot to address and that people had asked me about, how did we come up with these questions? So I put it out on Facebook for people to send me their questions. And I got some. And then I also got some from people that I looked back at the council meetings and what were thematic issues. And I made up the verbiage for the questions. So you can blame me. But I felt that it would be realistic to address these real life problems rather than something more esoteric like what would you do with $1 million? Because that's a fantasy we all have, except for Susan, who already is a millionaire. So, didn't mean to call you out, Sue. And I just wanted to say thank you again for everybody to be here. I'm kind of making this up as I go, as you can tell, so the 10-second warnings, we'll be giving those for everybody from now on. It is apparent to me that Sean Fleming is also not going to be here. So of our city council people, we have Mark Bliss, Quinn Wright, and Toya Aaron. Mark is running as a write-in, but the rest of them are on the ballot. And Tony here is going to be being their moderator. We will have another very short break after their section. Then we're going to have these two talk about the school board and the school finance issues that are also on the ballot. And then we're going to have a free-for-all question session. Okay? So, here's what I know about the folks that are up here. Every single one of them would make a great mayor or council person because they have the heart and the bravery to lead us. Every single one of them have got strengths and challenges. But we get to decide, as humans, who leads us. So that's what we're here for today. So again, thank you all, and now I'm going to turn you over to Tony for our council people. If you wouldn't mind, would the mayors come to the ends and then the city council people come in the center? Thank you. I'll let them make their little shuffles. Oh, just as another thing, the mayors, there was just two of them, so we could do a coin toss. We actually have numbers to be drawn for the city council people, so, and that'll go in the same whatever order they draw. There you go.
Okay.
That's good.
We good? Okay. First of all, thank you everybody for attending. I'm going to start off by going to our distinguished council candidates, and we will have a drawing to find out who goes first, second, and third.
Actually, they say 1 through 6 because everybody had confirmed to be here. So whatever their order, whatever number you got, we're still going to start with the lowest number and then I'll work our way up to our highest number.
I don't want to do shifting chairs. Okay, don't wait to tell you numbers.
And number
3, 4.
I'll open it in a second. Technical difficulties, y'all. Number 1. See, you did give me, it's only ones.
Okay, so.
So Mark will go first, followed by Toya and then Quinn. All right, I'll take my little container back.
Okay, I'm gonna be selfish real quick, and to the mayoral candidates, first to both candidates, great job. It's a lot of stress being in this room and to be able to address the public, and so we thank you both. Okay. Okay, to our council candidates, I'm gonna try to make you breathe as we go through this. My job is to, just like Rebecca, who did an outstanding job, my job is to make sure that everyone is comfortable as we talk about the different questions and have you answer it, so then the people in this room and all the constituents that are listening out and will be looking in the future to be able to hear from you, and then reaching out to the candidates are not here. We wish them well. If this maybe the last time we see them before or hear from them before the election, our wishes out to those candidates as well. I'm going to touch on 4 questions, ladies and gentlemen, and those 4 questions will be centering around reaching residents, The mayoral candidates had already talked about, we're going to talk about again, our retiree costs. We're going to talk about, as the mayoral candidates covered already, housing and the housing market. And we will wrap it up and we will talk about business growth. So we will start with you, Mr. Bliss. Okay, thank you, sir. And the question we'll have, the first question, here in Madison Heights, we know we come from, there are many different types of residents as far as in the demographic of dwelling. We have pretty much three categories. We have homeowners, we have individuals who are renting, and we also have individuals who live in apartment complexes. So the question will center around reaching residents. And the question is, what ways have you, as a candidate, reached out to those residents in those particular areas, in those housing demographics, to represent so that you can better understand the concerns that impact each part of that faction of the city? And I'll start with you, Mr. Bliss.
Awesome. Well, first off, let me take a step back. Thank you, Mary, for putting this on. It's awesome to actually see people and not be recording a video for distribution for once. Secondly, for those who don't know me, I've been on city council since 2013. I'm a VP of a software startup in my professional life, but I think what's more important is I grew up here. I'm a third-generation lifelong resident of this community. There are currently 4 different generations of my family living here right now. So one of the demographics that you didn't touch on was different ages. We have to take care of our seniors that are living here as much as we need to create opportunities for young children like mine to be able to enjoy the city of Madison Heights. And how do we reach out and engage those? Fortunately or unfortunately for me, they all have my phone number. And so at any family dinner, we're getting a lot of that. And my kids actually go to school here. I went to school here. And so there's a lot of ability to get in touch with the needs of the community. One time I was volunteering at my kid's school, and one of the kids was talking about how they wish that there was a soccer goal at the park that their parents always take them to. Within a week, we were able to get a soccer goal there. And it's things like that that I think it has to be about listening. It has to be about engaging. And so in my time on council, I've done probably about a dozen town halls at different locations all throughout the city. We've done public surveys to be able to understand what people want before we spend any money on anything. I've done open office hours at the library. I've done that on social media and email as well. And so I think what we need to do and continue to get better at is how do we listen to people and understand what they want? And some examples of that I've listened, I've heard, and I've taken action: park bathrooms during the summer. That came from a town hall because a parent didn't want to have to leave to take their kid home because the kid had to go to the bathroom. So we got bathrooms in our parks. The murals, the arts board, all came from town halls. And if I'm reelected as a weird write-in candidate, so you got to write my name on this ballot, but if I'm reelected, I'm going to keep doing that. I'm going to keep doing those town halls. I'm going to keep listening. And then I'm actually going to take action and make sure that the things that you want as residents get done within whatever confines of budget and staffing limitations that we have. We can think outside of the box. And if I'm elected, we're going to keep doing that. And so please consider writing my name in. It's really not that difficult to spell. And I have 10 seconds left, so I will finalize in thanking all of you for being here, because this is such an important topic and conversation. These elections matter more than the national ones, so thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Mark Bliss. Now we have the same question to Ms. Toya Aaron.
Very good, Tony. Before I get started, believing in protocol, I would like to say thank you to Mary Bush for putting on this event, to our distinguished mayor, council members that are here. It's a great pleasure to be a part of this roundtable discussion today. As Mark has already established, it's very difficult to look down at a camera while you speak. I found myself feeling as though my eyes were closed and I was the sleepy candidate because the way my monitor was set up in my office. However, to move forward with the question at hand, the question is, what ways have I reached out to individual residents to represent so that I can get a better understanding for their concerns? I came into the race a little late, I would say. I decided to run for candidacy in July, where many of my counterparts had already started well before that time. Of course, the incumbents started 4 years ago, and Mr. Quinn, as well as Mr. Fleming, had started probably January, April time. So I was off on the race a little short. But what I have done in that time, I have knocked on doors. I have spoken to people within the supermarkets. I've been to Value Center. I wish I can go to Value City, but Value Center, I've been to Hollywood Market as well as Meyer, speaking with residents, asking questions, asking what is it that if I'm elected as city council, what can I do to better serve you? One of the questions and one of the answers that I've gotten from all of them has been, how can you make it where we have more things for our kids to do? A lot of people find, with me being a single mom of a 13-year-old son, I've been in this city for 13 years. I want somewhere for my son to grow and go. You know, we cannot have our kids out here doing things that is ungodly and unlike them. So I want to find ways where I can go back and give to the city, where our parks will be utilized more. When I lived on Spoon, there was Sherry Park right behind me. I can count on the number of times on one hand how many times I actually seen that park utilized. We have more parks in our city, and we need to have functions, whereas our children, our seniors, our disabled, our moms can just go and have fun. We need to open these parks up and have fun in the parks, not just allowing them to be statues in the city to say we have X amount of parks. So those are some of my goals, or one of my goals. I've also talked to people over the telephone. I have a phone bank where I've called them on the phone just to introduce myself and say hello. I have not been to the apartment complex yet, but that's on this week's agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Toya Aaron. Same question to Mr. Quinn Wright.
Thank you. It gives me a mental break from thinking about if Michigan State's winning right now. So I can talk about this question because that's been kind of on my mind for a while because it was close. My name is Quinn, by the way. I've been living in this city. I've had the privilege of being both a renter and a homeowner in this city. My 3 daughters, this is the only home they've ever known. We were pregnant with my daughter when I lived on Lincoln. We actually lived in those condos, those 3-story condos next to the dentist office when we first moved into Madison Heights about in 2007, I think it was. And so I have the firsthand experience of what it's like to be a renter in the city and understand what you expect. And I know what it's like to have your children be born into this community and have to grow up here and understand what it would help to make this a better community. Secondly, I know what it's like to be a first-time home buyer in the city of Madison Heights. And so when it comes to having that personal experience, that's where I start. And then when it comes to talking to residents, I've been having this conversation for the past couple of years, like what would it take to help to bring in new families? Because the truth of the matter is that communities continuously turn over. I've had new neighbors and I've seen old neighbors come into the community, so having those conversations and in particular, talking to people in the community. I've been a member of Central Church, I think, for the past 10 years, so having that foundation in the community gives a center to learn about some of the different cases that people are dealing with, what some of our older residents are dealing with, what are some of our older homeowners dealing with, and how we can have some programs to help them out. And I want to stay on track here because I can get off track on the tangent real quick here. But the ways in which I've reached out to residents is like everyone else, by having conversations, doing our research, understanding the impacts of Social Security on their income, what it means to be on a fixed income as a financial advisor. I have a lot of residents and clients that I work with who are at the age of retirement or retired, so I understand what it means to be working with a fixed income. And knowing that Madison Heights has an aging population and understanding the impacts of that are what I think are going to help me to help move this community forward, because those factors play a part in dealing with things like how's their fixed income going to look in 10 years from now, and how's that going to have an impact on the tax base, and how are we going to replenish the community. So growing up in this community and being a parent in this community, understanding what we need to provide that environment for the new parents to have a place that they want to bring their kids, because part of what we need to do is attract new residents and help them to feel like Madison Heights is a place that they feel safe, they feel like their kids are going to get a quality education, and they feel like this is a place that they can grow. And so part of the ways that we can do that is by continuing to have the conversations, not only with the folks who live on the north and the south side, but bringing them all together to say what common things will help to move the city forward. And those common things are safety and security, and also a plan going forward. So that alarm kind of threw me off. Oh, I still have 10 seconds? Okay, all right. So go green. We can move on.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn Wright.
We were kind of hoping that we would have no fire alarms during this event, but obviously we've had at least one. In the future, if this happens again while you guys are talking, what I'm going to do is stop it and then start it again, so that they'll do their overhead stuff, and you don't have to worry about trying to talk over them and us have to worry about trying to hear you, okay?
It's not a distraction at all. Not at all.
It was for me.
I'm completely joking.
Okay, thank you, candidates, for your answers on this question. I'm trying to kind of put some air in so I can allow Mr. Bliss to be able to breathe, and all three candidates, so I will kind of give pause between each of the questions, okay?
I just hope everybody's okay, whatever that fire alarm was.
Yes, most definitely. Okay, so now we move to our next question, and the mayoral candidates had already talked about retiree costs. So I'm going to kind of ask the same question again, and I'll start with you, Mr. Bliss. And the question is, based on your review of the current budget and financial reviews of the city, what policies would you recommend to council to head off the coming challenge of retiree legacy cost?
All right, so Mayor Grafstein already covered quite a bit of this, but let me rapid fire it in a way that hopefully isn't boring, because this is not an easy topic to talk about. So we've, as a city, already closed most of the defined benefit plans. And so a lot of these long-term costs, the first step is making sure that you don't keep incurring them. So we took that step. Then we worked directly with our unions. I think I've been through 3, maybe 4 different bargaining cycles in my time on council. And a lot of that is trying to restructure the comp plans, like how can we change as things like healthcare changes? And how do we work with them to make sure that the city doesn't get bogged down with these costs, thus making it so we can't hire any new firefighters, police officers, or staff members, but making sure that we keep our promises to those who gave decades to the city. And so it's a balancing act, and we've worked on that. We issued pension bonds, which is where most of that $40 million savings that Mayor Grafstein talked about came from, was the pension bonds that we issued, enabling us to cut down a lot of that unfunded liability. But I think the key point, and the thing that I want to stress, is that every dollar in the budget has to count. And so in my time on council, every single time we went through the budget, I went through every line item. Every time there was a contract renewal, I went through everything in the contract. You know, we actually had a vendor in the city who asked us to give their contract an increase 2 years before it was up, just because. It's things like that that I continue to fight, and if I can find even $1,000 of budget savings, whether it's through a contract renegotiation or cutting down on some office supplies, every time I've been able to put that into quality of life programming like we were talking about, whether it's technology that's rentable at the library. Some of it even went into the funding for the Juneteenth Festival this year. How do we find those budget savings and attribute them into the things that matter most directly to our residents? And that's the thing that I want to continue to do. Unfunded liabilities are a big behemoth, and we're only going to be able to chip away at it on a yearly basis. It's going to be little bits over time. But the larger theme, how do we be as fiscally responsible as we can be to make sure that all those little things that make a huge difference to our residents are able to be funded in an already super stretched thin budget.
10 seconds?
I'm good.
Okay.
I like it when it ends organically. That's kind of
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Bliss. Ms. Aaron.
As it has already been mentioned, retiree legacy costs is nothing new. It's happening not just here in the city of Madison Heights, but it's happened in the city of Detroit. It's happening in every industry. I've been in healthcare for over 30 years, and we had to deal with this exact thing years ago within the company that I'm working for now. One of the issues with that one city has done is filing bankruptcy, which deplenish the retiree legacy costs for those that had worked for the city for so many years. We don't want to see that happen in Madison Heights. One of the hardest things to ever do is to know that you have worked for a company for 45 years to say that your retiree funds have now been demolished and you no longer have it. There's never should be a time where a senior should have to decide whether or not they should eat or take their medication. So what I believe one of the things that we can do that I've seen happen in my workplace is we went about and decreased the amount of PTO that was given into a bank. Because if we were to take away that extra time off, no, it wasn't easy. Was it pleasant? No, not at all. But if we look at how much time we are giving people to have personal time off or combined time off, that saved us so many millions of dollars by decreasing that. Also, making certain that those individuals coming into a company are vested into it prior to beginning to put in extra money for their retirement fund. What I'm saying is, millennials are coming into the workplace. I work with more and more every day, and they're coming in interviewing us, telling us what they want, how they want things to go. Many of them are not interested in retirement at this time. So what we need to do is, as they're coming into the workforce, giving them that 5-year option where they can put into their own retirement at that time, and after they have been vested within the city for that 5 years, now the city starts vesting into them. Because honestly, why should we vest into someone that's not vested into us? That is my real point. The other thing is, what we did is we had a savings where we got rid of holiday pay. You're like, what? We work on a holiday and you don't get paid for it? No, you don't get paid for the holidays. So trying to take those little nuances or little funds wherever we can to put that extra money into the retirement budget help to save the hospital so many millions of dollars. And I believe that if we did that same thing here in the city, we can see a growth in our retirement funding, whereas those that have given so much of their time will be able to live comfortably the remaining of their days. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Aaron. Mr. Wright.
This is one of those topics I get incredibly excited about as a financial advisor, diving into like the numbers and looking at the past budgets and looking at the future projections as well. I deal with retirement all the time, and it's one of those things that I agree with a lot of the things that have been said about where we are in terms of dealing with that. I think the plan has been laid out in the master plan and the budgets. I think they are on par with what we need. However, I think we need to understand that part of the problem we're having with retirement right now is that folks are living longer in retirement, and that's really the cost. So we need to address that and accept that that is not going to change within the next 10 or 20 years. So the budget needs to be adjusted to understand that that is something that we're going to have to deal with. So although the new entrance into the program, the defined benefit has been changed, the cost that they're going to incur for the city is going to be longer, over like 10 or 20 years. And so we have to prepare for that in our planning for the budget for the next couple of decades, because we want to ensure that our seniors who are aging here are taken care of not just today, but for the rest of their days. And so that is one thing I think we need to address going forward. Additionally, we need to also ensure that we recognize that one thing I always say at my job is $25 today is worth $100 tomorrow. So we need to ensure that we are not pushing off our priorities in hopes that it'll be some way to address them later down the road, because we're kicking the can down the road and not addressing them will only cause more issues and cause more complications. And so I think we need to, when we find that money, we need to first understand, is there an opportunity to spend it now or to invest back in the city now to avoid from having to pay 2 times, 3 times, 4 times as much down the road? Because as we've seen this past year, inflation is a real thing. And one of the things I've been trying to explain to a lot of my clients lately is that inflation is going to be here regardless of if we want it or not. Regardless of if the economy is good or bad, we're going to have to deal with the cost of goods rising. And so I want to make sure that as we look through these budgets, we're not just cutting, but we're also preparing for what's to come next. Like the next issue outside of the retirement funds. I think we need to give our firemen and our policemen everything they deserve. They work for it. My brother's a cop. My brother-in-laws are first responders, chief battalions, and sergeants. So I understand and I hear their side of the story, and they work hard and they deal with a lot. And so I want to make sure that when we're budgeting, we're not just taking it down to $1 and a cent, but we're looking at people, and it's people first, and it's going to be those people first and the citizens first. And so that is how I want to do it, by making sure that we're accounting for the cost of things in the future and understanding the investment that it takes today to make sure we don't incur more costs down the road.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, our third question, we're talking about, and once again, the mayoral candidates had addressed, we're talking now about the housing market. And so, Mr. Bliss, my question to you, then subsequently the other candidates, the question is, what practical policies, and I'll just say, what policies do you think we need to either revise or add? Just your thoughts about assisting our city into becoming a friendlier, more inviting housing market.
Sure. So, hold on, I've been cheating and making sure that I have my own stopwatch, everybody. So, a little behind the scenes there. All right. Let me recap a few of the things that we've done. We did our first master plan for the city in 3 decades. That was a thing that I championed. I worked on as a part of the Planning Commission. We hosted several open town halls. We did an online survey, really trying to understand what types of housing that the city actually wants. Then, as Mayor Grafstein said, we've been changing a lot of ordinances. We've been shifting some zoning, really trying to take what our residents told us they wanted and allowing the city to then reflect that in the future. And so what that means in the simplest terms is we're allowing things like multi-story and mixed-use type developments in the city. And that's something that hadn't been before. Now there are very specific requirements. We're not going to have a, giant, 5-story high-rise or something in the city. But within a limited context, we're allowing some diversity in what types of housing and what types of development are coming into the city. Now, our city's nearly entirely built out, so everything is redevelopment. And even from there, we don't have like a magical wand for city council that's going to enable us to say, hey, I really love Whole Foods. It'd be great if I had one that I could go to that's right on the corner. We can't do that. But what we can do is to create an environment where developers want to be. We can cut red tape at City Hall to make sure it's easy and efficient for them to get it done. And so that's the type of stuff that we've been working on, especially in a market like this where we want to take advantage of the fact that there are inflated prices. We want to make sure people are buying and developing right now because that helps us when the taxes are recalibrated. Other things that matter, though, and we don't talk about this enough, but quality of life matters so much when it comes to the housing market and even developers choosing to be here. Better parks, a better library, more events, more public art. All of those things have statistically been proven to help drive investments. And so I've spent a lot of time personally working on a lot of that, getting more playscapes into our parks. Major library changes that some of them are already done, some of them are underway. I co-chaired the Trail Tunes event, trying to make sure that there was a summer festival this year. And then murals and things. Like we've been hard at work trying to make sure that this is an attractive city, not just for the developer looking to invest $3 million redeveloping something, but also the parent who's pregnant with their first child, who's looking for the safest, most amazing community to live. And we want them to choose Madison Heights every time.
Thank you, Mr. Bliss. Ms. Aaron.
Thank you. The question is, what policies would I revise to make Madison Heights more friendlier and more inviting? When I first moved into Madison Heights, I had a neighbor that lived next door to me. The first day that I came, she saw the moving truck. She saw that I had a 2-month-old baby in my hand, and she came outside and she introduced herself to me. Not only did she introduce herself to me, but her husband later came and he brought us the recreation booklet. And in that booklet, it had information such as when is the garbage will be picked up, what days we can put things out on the curb. And I remember him saying, because I hadn't raked my leaves yet, and he said to me, no, we're not gonna have none of that here in Madison Heights. And these are the policies, and you can rake your leaves and put them on the curb. I enjoyed that. Having our neighbors introduce themselves and know that they are being a neighbor, not stealing your ploy. Just want to make sure you know that. However, one of the things that I really believe that needs to happen, because in 2017, Mayor Hartwell had stated that he wanted Madison Heights to be a welcoming city. We have all different kinds of races, genders, nationalities, and everything coming into this city. We need to make certain that our city is one that people feel comfortable. What I would like to propose is that for anyone to be a part of the board, if we can have some form of a diversity training course, where that they can understand each person and understand what are their trigger parts. We all have unconscious biases. Believe me, every one of us in this room. I want us to be able to know that we can take those unconscious biases and sitting on councils, on city boards, and understanding other people in a diverse situation. Being that when people are looking in and saying, oh, wow, Madison Heights is really, truly a diverse community. It will cause you to want to come, because no matter where you stay, you will feel welcome and feel a part of a unity, part of a team. That was one of the things that I thought about. I believe that's all I really had there. It's just, coming together and uniting as a front. I think that when you're looking at a house, looking for a house, you're looking at location, you're looking at the services that city offers, and then you're looking at the type of people that live in your city. You don't want to live next door to the grumpy old man that yells at every child saying, get off of my lawn. I grew up in an area like that. We want to make certain that the neighbor comes next door and see that you're a single mom with a young child, and he, without pay, shovels my snow. All right.
Thank you, Ms. Aaron. Mr. Wright.
I apologize for yelling at anybody to get off my lawn. Sorry. It takes a ton of work. Sorry. Apologies. I yell at my kids. I shouldn't do that. It's hard. It's hard. No. So listen, here's the deal. As the chairman of the Human Relations and Equity Commission, I understand the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion more than anybody in this community. But when it comes down to policies and talking about them, I thought about this question because people asked me about that question because I once referred to a book. It was called How to Be an Anti-Racist. And in that book, it talked about policies. We need to make sure that policies are anti-racist. And all that means is that they're inclusive, that they take into consideration social economic situations. They take into consideration our ways to kind of equalize the playing field. And so when I take a look at our policies in the city, I think really what we need to do is make sure that our policies are inclusive to first-time home buyers. Our policies are inclusive to entice people to go from renters to buyers like my wife and I did here. We had an opportunity to rent in this community, and then we bought because we knew it was a safe community. We believed that they had good school systems, and we knew that our family could thrive here. And we need to ensure that our policies don't just look pretty on paper, but they feel good in real life. And so our policies need to be something that people can actually feel. They don't just need to look good on paper. And so I want to make sure that when we're going through our policies, when we're talking about inclusivity, we're talking about how can we make this inclusive for a first-time home buyer? How can we make this inclusive for a senior? How can we make sure that our policies are fair to everyone who lives here and not just something that will look great when we read it, but at the end of the day won't have the impact that people can feel that will attract them to our city, that will attract the businesses. Because what kind of happens is sometimes when you live somewhere for a while, you don't start to see the cobwebs, you don't start to see the crack that you're trying to get to, and we want to make sure as a city we're seeing those cobwebs and those cracks, and we're addressing those things so that if people who are not only living here but coming here, like for example going to the murals at Rosie's Park, they're like, hey, this is a cool place, I can live here. I can't tell you how many people I've seen now at Rosie's Park who are like from Royal Oak. When I was getting signatures and I was like, you know, talking to everybody like, hey, can I get a signature? They're like, I live in Royal Oak. So I don't know if they really lived in Royal Oak, if that's just what they were telling me, but still, there were people who were coming who, I mean, some of them probably didn't, but some of them definitely did. And so that's what we want. We want this to be a to town and not a through town. So the policies need to reflect that in everything that we do for economic development, for safety, and the other thing that everyone talks about. The thing that I love that people keep talking about is the community. It's the community, community, community. That's how we continue to keep it safer and keep our costs down for our law enforcement and for our EMT. If people know each other, are willing to come talk to each other. My neighbor talked to me about leaving my water on an odd day because I'm an even number. Yeah. So it's all about building that community and making sure that community is reflected in our policies.
18 seconds to go. I guess you're done.
Yeah, I guess I can. You know, I can go for like another 2 hours, so.
Thank you for your restraint.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Okay, our final question, and I had to tease Ms. Bush on this one as I called her. I was like, "H," because I'm a school board person, and we're going to talk about growth. And so when I saw cannabis on here, I was like, okay.
Weed, Tony. We're talking about weed.
Cannabis. You say weed. So I have to address the question, and I'm asking the question on behalf of the community, the question. So, though I'm a little bit funny about asking it, but we're going to talk about growth. And with growth, the question that I want to emphasize and get your answer, Mr. Bliss, first is, now that we have the presence of cannabis, and I'm going to slip in and other businesses, but specifically right now, the question about cannabis manufacturing being active now in our community, and that federal laws likely will change in the next 5 years. How can we how is the community looking at opportunities for growth, not only particularly, and I'm going to shift it and say, not only just in this particular area, but in other forms of business as well. That's my way of talking about the growth of cannabis, but also talking about other businesses as well.
All right, so first let me say, this is one of the few types of businesses that are not like Whole Foods that I do not want on every corner, right? It's the same thing with liquor stores or cash advance sites. We don't want that on every single corner. And so I think what happened when it became legalized is a lot of these small caregiver operations, city had no control over. We couldn't regulate them. There was no law in place that would allow us to regulate them. And so they just started popping up. And so what I and other members of city council are saying is, okay, this is here. How do we profit from it for our residents? And so what we did is we created a policy that first and foremost put everything only into industrial zones, making sure that, you know, if we're opening up licenses, they're where we want them to be. And then there was a court case that allowed us to regulate the caregiver licenses and make sure those went into the industrial zones. Then we said, okay, well, how do we attract the right businesses? And so if you're going to have anybody producing and selling marijuana in the city, it has to be a really high quality business with a lot of cash, skin in the game, with a lot to lose if something were to go wrong. And so we created a scoring system that basically weeded out all of the smaller operations and really prioritized redevelopment. One of the things I put into the scoring mechanism was a additional score that these businesses received in their application for taking a existing vacant building and redeveloping it. And so one of those is in the old bowling alley, which I bowled at as a kid. It was a great bowling alley, but it was a terrible eyesore for about a decade. And so it's nice that we were able to see millions of dollars invested into that building. It's helping our taxes ongoing. But I think even more important is when we approved those 2 licenses, it created a fund that now money goes back into the community every year. Each of those 2 facilities put $25,000 a year, as well as 1% of their profits, into a Progress Forward fund that has already spent $7,000 to plant trees, $5,000 for that Rosie's Park mural that Mr. Wright mentioned, that I'm super proud that we were able to get done because we didn't have the funds to do it. $23,000 towards the fitness court, and then even $1,000 towards trail tunes and to help with Juneteenth. And so if it's going to be here, we need it regulated, we need it in industrial zones, and we need to make sure that the community benefits from it. And so that's been my approach, and that's what I'll continue to do going forward as this issue keeps evolving with whatever happens on the federal level. I think that should be it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
7 seconds.
I had
Super.
7 seconds. Well, I don't know. Hi.
No, thank you, Mr. Bliss.
You had your own timer, so I wasn't bothering to say 10 seconds.
Ms. Aaron.
Like,
Take your time. Don't start it yet.
no, go right ahead.
Go
Like
ahead.
you, Tony, when I read this question, I'm a licensed minister, and then I had to think, oh my God, is this a drug lord question? You know, you got the dope boys on the corner. How can we capitalize off of them being in our neighborhood? So it was funny, and I felt like, oh, I guess you guys didn't get it. But anyway, when I look at this question, I had to think back. One of the obvious, of course, is the way we can capitalize on this. It's going to bring jobs into our city. With the opening of Liberty, more jobs have come into the city, more opportunities for residents to find employment, which is a great deal. With the revenue that we're receiving back from them in the tax income, it is helping us to do better things. One of the things I feel that we can use with that next form of revenue that comes through is developing more signage in our downtown area. I have outsiders and even those of us living in the city, where is Madison Heights downtown area at? Many people do not know. We need to brighten that area up. So if we have that money coming in from them, let's put up some flags and bigger signs so that people can know or will know that they're actually in our downtown area. And then we move from there to start developing that area. Other things is we can use that money that is coming in to help with our infrastructure. You know, when we had the flood in 2014, we were told 300 years from now we will never see that again. How many floods have we had in the last 3 months this past summer? So if we can use some of the revenue coming in from those companies to perhaps help with our infrastructure, perhaps help with our storm drains, would be great. I feel that those are ways that it will reduce the amount of flooding, it will reduce the amount of anger that people are resulting from of these floods. And we can see that these companies coming in is also a benefit in helping our city. Not just that we cannot handle the smell, we're concerned about whether or not our children are going in it. And yes, no, we don't want to have every type of cannabis store on every corner in Madison Heights. Just like we don't want to have every liquor store, as Mark said, in Madison Heights. So we want to have it consistently regulated where that the money they're bringing in, we're getting money to come back to help us to grow as a city. And that's all I have.
20 seconds left.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for listening to me.
Thank you, Ms. Aaron. Mr. Wright.
Thank you. I think the cannabis industry is a great opportunity for us because it's still a market where people are trying to figure out what it is and what it means. How can it impact? Is it good? Is it bad? And what can it really do for cities like ours? If you go and you look out in states like Colorado where they had, I think, something like 72 million, might even be with I'll just say million, because billion sounds like a lot. 72 million at least in revenue that they got from the sale of marijuana. The fact of the matter is they're finding more and more medicinal uses for marijuana that has less impacts than opioids. And so I think one of the things that in my industry we always talk about when doing stuff for folks, is it moral, is it ethical, and is it in their best interest? The way we need to first address this is by doing it morally, ethically, and what's in the best interest of the community, and that means capitalizing on innovative ways in which we can capture those tax dollars, because those tax dollars are pretty much what can help us fill the gap. When we go back to the question about dealing with the pension fund and things like that, this is an opportunity, but we have to do it responsibly and respectfully, because no, I don't want it next to the playgrounds. No, I don't want it next to the schools, but at the same time, we can be innovative. We can figure out ways to, how can we incorporate that into maybe a part of our downtown and find like ways to attract people, or if we're just talking about the green zone, how can we attract those people if we don't want it in our downtown to just have that green zone, to just have it out of sight. We collect the revenues, and it's not something that people feel like could be a potential harm to the community. And so I think that capitalizing on it is a lot of what we need to do in terms of innovation and innovatively thinking about how we can deal with it in the future with those tax dollars coming in and what they could mean to the entire community, and also how we can make sure that we're holding them not only responsible by giving money, but making sure that we're ethically explaining to the kids what this is, how it impacts, but also exploring how we can use it to bring in even more businesses that focus on like the medicinal side and dealing with the different types of illnesses, or even the hemp processing that they do. So there's a lot of opportunities, and what we need to do is just put policies in place to not only attract them with benefits, but also hold them accountable while they're here, and also look at ways we can improve our programs through in-kind services, not only with them, with other businesses, and saying, hey, how can we attract other people, not just with tax dollars, but how can we rope in programs for trade programs and for other college students to come here, donate time and labor, and learn a skill that they can take and move on, because that's what it's going to take if money isn't the only option. We need to have programs that are magnets to bring people in, and it can't always be through the traditional ways, and this is an example of not doing it through the traditional way. So innovatively, I guess, is what it boils down to for me, in tax dollars.
14 seconds to go.
And since I have 14 seconds to go, I think that I will just talk very slowly. No, I'm done.
Go Michigan, right?
No, go green, go state.
So before I leave, I'd just like to applaud everybody up here. I'm gonna tell you right now, I can easily get up here and just talk. I had the easy spot. When I'm walking away from this lecture and I listen to each and every one of you, to be able to know that when I walk away that you all are trying to run the city. And so it's very easy to grandstand, and I can have my comments, but I'm not running the city. And that's it. And I will tell you, as a former military officer, you're going to make hard decisions, but you're making decisions for the best interest of the people, and some going to be unpopular. So once again, I thank. Since I have the council candidates piece, I thank you for your candid answers and reflection, and thank you for putting up with me as your moderator. Thank you.
We're going to take another minute and a half break to kind of stand up and stretch. And then, yeah, minute and a half.
Are you giving us a 10-second?
I gotta run then.
I'm going to time it. No, you can go to the bathroom. We'll give you 3 minutes. We'll give you a full 3 minutes. But just to let you know, don't leave yet. Hey, not yet. Tony and Rebecca are going to talk about the school fund. And then we're going to have the open questions for the candidates. Okay? Now you can go. Speaking about school finances, we have Mr. Tony Austin, who's the president of the Lamphere School Board. He's going to do a little general information about millages first and then talk about the Lamphere, what's on their ballot. And then Ms. Rebecca Chambliss, trustee for the Madison District Public Schools, she'll be talking about what's on the ballot for the Madison District Public Schools. And then we'll take probably no more than a break for them to sit down, and then you guys can start asking questions from the candidates. Thank you. And again, thank you so much for being here. Okay, Tony.
Once again, thank you, everybody. 3 minutes. I'm gonna try to make it. I know none of the pressure's on me. Now I understand how y'all feel. Hey, listen, ladies and gentlemen. I know when I first moved into a community or bought my first house, I didn't know what a mill was. You always hear the mill this. How many people really, honestly, know what a millage is? Right by a show of hands. Good. So we have a lot of people that don't. Let me explain it really quickly, okay? When you live in a community, you pay taxes, of course, for all the upkeep, municipal upkeep through the city, and you also take some of the taxes go to your school district, and it goes into the school district's budget to operate the district. So what a millage is I want you to think about for every $1,000 of your property value, think of $10 for each $1,000 of your property value. That's the taxable portion that will come to that school district. And so when the school district puts their budget together, they get money, of course, from the state, but they also get it from the property taxes from you. That's what a millage is. Every 10 years, each of the districts, we go through an assessment to see exactly how much do we think we need as far as from a property standpoint to ask for you. And then we renew it every 10 years. So in a nutshell, 2011 for Lamphere, the millage was 19.75. Okay, so once again, if you think $1,000, think $19.75 for each $1,000 is going to Lamphere. So for the renewal, and we need the renewal because take that chunk out and it's not there, we can't operate. So the renewal is really good because we're going from 1975 down to 1925. So we have to renew the millage, and the mill was going down to include, it breaks down, that's the ceiling for the millage. But reality is homestead, and you always hear that word going back and forth, homestead means you live in your house. Whereas opposed to non-homestead, let's say you're a business owner and you have property, or you have vacant land, or you are renting another property. That's non-homestead. So for homestead, it's really not 19.25, it's really 14.5. So it's even lower. It's a little bit higher for non-homestead or the rental properties and land of 18 mil. So in a nutshell, what we're asking on the ballot is what we do every 10 years. We're asking for a renewal of the millage. And there is no increase in taxes to the homeowners or the business owners. And we're going from, once again, like I stated, 19.75 mils to 19.25 mils. So I hope I was able to clarify that because I know when I first start moving into a home and it's like, in the middle of this, and I was like, okay, what are you talking about? You know, from there. And sometimes, most of the time, it's kind of seamless when we're talking about taxes and our property taxes. And once again, it's based off of how your land, your property is assessed. Portion has to go to take care of the schools. And we're just asking for a renewal as we do every 10 years. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. I'll let you go a little longer because it was interesting.
Thank you.
Ms. Rebecca.
Okay, thank everybody for coming back and staying with us. Bonds aren't exactly fun, and up until this past year, when I started on the school board, I had no clue what any of this meant, and actually what I thought I knew I didn't. So a couple questions I've been asked is, why do I need to approve a bond? You already get money from the state. Why can this school district not make that money stretch and work to cover what you need done? The thing is, when a school district receives money from the state of Michigan, that's for their operational daily cost. That's things to get them food, teachers, the chairs they sit in, the desks they're at, the gym teacher, the coaches, maintenance, housekeeping, everything that will affect the child's day. But when things happen, just like they happen at your house, when your roof becomes, past life, or the windows aren't up to efficiency code, or a state law changes, and you might need an auxiliary gym because boys and girls can't practice or have to practice at the same time, but they're doing two different sports, so they can't be together. Different needs arise as we go on through time. So the city of Madison Heights has 2 school districts, and Madison District in the past couple years has had recent bonds not pass. The reason why the most current bond that will be on your November 2nd ballot is so important is because we now have 3 of 4 roofs that need to be replaced. The Madison High School roof is so catastrophically damaged because it's gone long past its life, that we now have mold, we have water damage, we have tiles in the ceilings that have to be replaced, walls that need to be repaired. We have a heating and cooling system that no longer works, so most of our classrooms don't have cooling, and we put portable air conditioners in. We have a lot of things that these students need for their daily care and comfort that it seems like basic necessities, and we have not been able to get those replaced. So the bond on November 2nd is very important. But here's the great thing. So up until recently, we were paying for our taxes 7.76. 3 of those mills have fallen off. So right now you are paying the lowest taxes we have paid in 20 years. In just a very short amount of time, another 1.8 mills are going to fall off. We are asking on November 2nd that you vote yes so we can approve to renew those 1.8 mills, but you will still be paying the lower taxes. So you will afford the school to have $11.4 million to replace 3 of the 4 building school roofs, upgrade the HVAC system, the electrical system, pipes, vents, anything that was water damage that needs to be repaired, upgrade the front door security because the safety requirements in the state of Michigan, we needed to upgrade the security system that's at our front main entrance at the high school, and allow the children to have a better school day to where they're not hearing a portable air conditioner next to them and they're not looking at water damage ceiling tiles. It's a very important bond for Madison District. Thank you.
That wasn't set because you weren't interested, because it really was.
You're okay.
I apologize.
No, you're fine.
Thank you. Woo! All right, at this time, we'd like to open up the floor to the audience. Candidates, just please keep your answers as brief as possible, but at the same time, address the question directly and don't dance around it, okay? Thank you. Go ahead. Who's first? This young lady.
Hi, I'm Peg Merritt.
And I'm a videographer, so I'm gonna help the videographer, man, because they won't be able to hear you. You might want to come up here.
Okay. Oh, that's a great idea.
We can repeat the question too. Oh yeah.
We can repeat the question.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tony. I swear, teamwork makes the dream work.
Great job, Tony.
Anybody want to get in line for their questions, feel free.
We're all set? Okay.
Can y'all hear her?
Can you hear me?
Super.
Okay. My name's Peg Marentet. I live over on Plum Lane Drive. And my question is for Mayor Grafstein. When you were talking about the parks in the city that the county is kind of which 3? I remember you saying Nature Center and the water park. What was the third one?
Okay, so I'm just going to clarify. Water park is one.
Right.
The dog park, we have a dog park
Okay.
over on DeQuinder.
Okay.
Okay, that's the county. The nature center is owned by the city, but we have a long-term lease, so the county is maintaining it.
Right. Okay, now, to clarify for me, what is the city's status with the golf course and the soccer fields?
Okay, so, and that's good, because the golf course is not a park. So I guess technically it is county property in here, so yes, that would be county property here. And then the soccer field, it's in its own little category. We have a lot of subdivisions and different categories. So the soccer field is built on top of the drain, the George Kuhn drain. So it's actually part of that. But then we have all sorts of agreements where the city will maintain something but will be paid by somebody else. Like just for an example, out on DeQuinder, it's between the two counties. So we set up an agreement where I think it stands now that we pay Macomb County to take care of it. So we have a similar type agreement with the soccer field. Does that help? It's very confusing, so does
Yeah, I
it help?
didn't know if they were, if
Yeah.
the city was responsible for those, if the, like, with it being,
I would have to confirm, but I believe it's the city, but I would have to confirm, so I'm not gonna
Okay.
say for sure.
okay,
But
all
it's
right,
just one of those weird intergovernmental relationships.
okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I think the golf course is by the county.
The golf course is the county, but it's not an actual park.
Right.
So, yeah.
This is for Tony Bliss, I guess. You met, or, I mean, I think it was,
Mark Bliss.
no, oh, I'm sorry, Mark, jeez. Sorry.
Tony's
It's
here.
okay, my dad was a great man.
He was
You can
right
call
here
me-
with
Yeah, I
call
knew
me-
him very
You can
well.
call me Tony, whatever you want. It's a compliment.
Anyway, one of you mentioned about the marijuana, and somebody brought up Colorado. Well, my daughter lives in Colorado. She works for the county she's in. She's in a town of 9,000 people, and there's nine stores, marijuana stores in her little city. So I want to know, how many, any of you ever set a rule, the council, how many you're going to allow?
Yes, so I didn't mention, excuse me, I didn't mention Colorado. That was Mr. Wright, so I'll let him.
I'm sorry.
I'll let him talk about that. But what I will say, we have only allowed 2.
You're only allowed to.
We've only
But-
allowed
but
2.
do you have it on the record that how many more can we get?
There is only a third that would have to still take another full vote of council to even open an application period, and there can be no more than those 3. And even that third one, if a future council ever approved it, would still have to sit in the same confines of the industrial zones. So, there will not be one on every corner. We have a very, very small community. We're about 7.8 square miles.
Right.
So,
And about less than 30,000 people probably now.
Exactly. Now, that does not take into account the caregivers, though. Before we even made the rule, even when it was just medical that was legal, the estimate was that there were 200 grow operations within our neighborhoods. So residents doing that in their garage or their basement because they were legally allowed to, that's the stuff that we can't necessarily touch, we can't do much on. But the large operations like Liberty and Puff, the 2 that we've
Unless you
approved.
catch them, like they did on Brush one day.
Not if they're state legal,
They're
not
not,
if
I
there's a
know,
state.
it was just,
Yeah.
Okay.
they were doing it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a lot of
it-
this is state regulation.
But what
Exactly.
I'm saying is, I don't want to see, even in industrial areas, I don't want to see 10 or 20 of those things. And
Correct.
that's what I'm against, and if the council hasn't voted to limit that, I think it's wrong.
We have. So
Yeah.
only two have been approved, and there's only an option to add a third if a council takes a majority vote to then allow it. So, max.
for her little town, and it's not good.
Agreed.
Anybody else?
9 for 9,000, that's just insane.
Ms. Vita?
Do you want to say Colorado?
First of all, you guys are great, thank you. Now that, I'm sorry, Vita Palazzolo, I live kitty corner from here in the condos over there. Now that we have found out that the new senior apartments, thank you, over on DeQuinder, have not been given status from the state to be
Low income.
Low income.
Working on it. I'm guessing your question is going to be, what are we doing?
subsidized, yeah.
Subsidized.
in the future, will any of you, I toss this out to any of you, will any of you fight for some of the space that we do have here, whether it's going up, you know, or just a ranch-style unit of apartments that are, you know, subsidized housing for low income or, you know, those of us that are on disability. So what can you do for us seniors?
I'm gonna say yes out the gate. Absolutely, we need to take care of our seniors, and there's actually an ordinance that was brought up to the last city council meeting that will do just that as part of it. And so I think we need to pass ordinance like that and more to help protect our seniors.
I understand that, but I want to know what are your, in other words, will you be walking down looking at the land with a shovel? You know, who's going to break ground first, I guess is what I'm asking. So.
I would have to say yes, Vita, because one, having a mother that lived in the city, being on a fixed income, and a grandmother still being on a fixed income, as I stated a long time ago, I find it deplorable that our seniors have to decide whether or not they want to eat or take medication.
Yeah.
So if ever, as a member of the council, if I'm sitting on council and there is a project coming about that is to help out with our senior living, I will be one of the first front runners, standing on ground, breaking ground with them to make certain that a lot of that department space is allocated for subsidized housing for our seniors.
Great.
I never want to have a senior on the street.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm not gonna walk around with a shovel. I mean, it's Halloween, so I feel like that might be forgiven. So the pilot program that we initially created, and it's called pilot, and it's an entire legalized way of us giving some long-term tax benefits to allow them to come in at a lower rate and build what we want them to build. What we put together for that development was excellent.
Mm-hmm.
I'm proud of it. I wish the state would have approved it. The state did not. And so what we're trying to do now is find the next one that, and we've already built it. We've already built the confines. Everything that we did with that developer, we can now wash, rinse, and repeat for the next developer coming out. So it wasn't wasted time and effort. It's something that we can build upon. And it doesn't require me scaring neighborhood children with my shovel in my hand, but I'm certain that we're gonna be able to get something done. We just have to keep prioritizing it with the same emphasis that the other candidates have mentioned.
Yeah, I feel very secure with any of you guys on council to have that much passion, so thank you.
It's because I don't have my shovel.
Well,
I'm concerned about this shovel he wants to have.
It's a proverbial shovel. That's what we're talking about,
You
right?
know, Freddie Krueger or someone.
Anyone else? Okay, come on up. I'm gonna step up while you're working your way up here. Okay, to start with, I would not mind a weed store that I could walk to. I'm just waiting for the product to have the quality control that makes sure that the product is safe and all that kind of stuff. It's medicinal, totally medicinal. My question is for Bill. You had mentioned the meetings becoming more efficient and working behind the scenes. Since I know very little about the operations of mayors and councils and all that, how would you do that and not be in violation of the Open Meeting Act?
Well, no, not working behind the scenes for the meetings. I mentioned that in my volunteer world, I try not to be in the spotlight. So that's what I was referring to behind the scenes. Some of the things I'm looking at for the meetings will not violate Open Meetings Act. They're perfectly out in the open. I'm just going to try discuss some ways to streamline the meetings a little bit. I've been to some of them, and they last well into the evening as we can see sometimes. So I've just got some ideas on how to make those meetings run a little bit quicker maybe, and still get everything out in the open. So absolutely not going to violate any open.
Could you tell us more about what those are?
Well, yeah, one of the things I want to look at is, I'm not sure why we're enamored with the 7:30 start time, so I wanted to discuss that a little bit. One of the things that that we do on the school board is when a motion is read and presented, we don't read the entire thing back. So some of those motions are pretty lengthy that are presented to council, and I've seen a couple of times where the council member that wants the motion tries to repeat the message back, and then Mr. Sherman needs to step in and say, well, you left this piece out, you left that piece out, did you really mean this? I want to try and streamline that a little bit and maybe make that, okay, the motion's been read, can't we just support that motion? Do we have to repeat the whole thing back? And
I
then-
guess that will be a good question for legal, but thank you
Yeah,
for bringing that
yeah,
up.
yeah.
Can I address that? Actually,
Please.
just sorry, just to let you know,
Yeah.
to let you know. So, and Councilman Bliss can probably,
Can you speak to the mic
Oh,
for the people
sorry.
watching live?
sorry. A few years ago, I want to say 3 years ago, we actually did look at changing the meeting time from 7:30, and the majority of, and I don't know, former Councilwoman Scott might actually remember this too, but council voted it down. And actually, I shouldn't say voted it down. It was something that was asked, would you be amenable to, I believe it was a 7 o'clock. This was a few years ago, but I was fine with it, but other council members were not. So, I mean, it's definitely something that, you know, can easily be addressed again, but at the time that it was shot down. And then I'm not sure if you're talking about a consensus agenda. I know that this is something that I asked about a couple of years ago. We have a lot of things that we vote on, and it has to be repeated, and then we all have to vote on it. And a lot of them are very benign. And so I've seen other cities will say, we have these 5 items. We expect everyone to be voting yes, and this is not any kind of collusion, you know, we just approved a dump truck last week. So the chances of somebody saying no on that. So what I've seen in other meetings is someone will say, okay, here are the 5 items. If somebody wants to actually have a discussion about this dump truck or whatever it is, they pull it from the consensus, and the council will vote on just the other 4 items. I asked about that a couple of years ago, and I was told that council at the time was not interested. So, and again, this is not any kind of violation of the Open Meetings Act. I suggested it to, I believe, the clerk or the city manager, who took it to council, who wasn't interested. So who knows? People might be interested in now, but you're right. There's a lot of things that, you know, we have to approve the minutes of the meeting. And I asked at one point, can we approve, we have 2 or 3 minutes, can we approve them all together? No. So we have to do each of them. Again, items that we think are going to be consensus. So great ideas. Would love to revisit them.
Cool, thank you. Thank you both of you.
Thank you, ma'am. My name is Lisa Leonard Sonowa, and I live on Madison Avenue. Hello, everyone. This question goes to the 3 people who have never been elected in the city before.
Oh.
I notice all 3 of you are in the Citizens Academy this go-around. What I'd like to know is, prior to joining the Citizens Academy, which was after your decision to run, what have you done to volunteer in the city or to serve on any city government boards or city government type of agencies, not school-related, please, to get to know this city?
I can go first. I currently serve as the chairman of the Human Relations and Equity Commission. Prior to that, my involvement in the community was through the church. Prior to that, I actually also serve as on a board of directors for Michigan Infant Mental Health, and that's not just in the city, it's over the entire state, but specifically in the city, helped put on the Juneteenth celebration, worked with the Madison Heights Citizens United when they were putting on the speeches and the series that they do monthly to talk about, you know, ways in which we can just kind of deal with the issue of race and inequity. And so those are just a few. But through the church, we did backpack drives, we did back to school events, we did movie nights. Central Church has been involved in this community. It just wasn't one of those things where I didn't post about it on Facebook, so you didn't see it. But there's been many opportunities for me to connect with people through those various things, learn about the different stories, learn about how Madison Heights has numerous stories from people living on 13 Mile to people living on 10 and how it can vary. And so through those interactions over the years of being here, for the past decade plus, has helped me to connect with the community and understand some of the needs of everyone from our seniors to watching folks who were first time, not only home owners, but actually built their home. I remember the guy who lived on my street, I called him Mr. G on Parliament. He remembers when the end of the street was farmland and swampland. So meeting people like that and meeting the new folks who are moving in. So through the Human Relations and Equity Commission, through Central Church, those are some of the ways that I've been involved in the community. And I probably forgot 1 or 2 because I'm talking, so.
I would have to say and admit honestly that my involvement in the community has not been as prevalent as I had desired. One of the reasons why being a single mom, which is no excuse, but I worked full-time and I was going to school. Having the opportunity to join Citizens Academy did come after my announcement of running for council. Yet that was an invitation that was given to me, and I took upon that invitation, that invite, and accepted so that I can learn more about the inner workings of the city. More so, my involvement did revolve around me working with the Boy Scouts of America, helping Troop 1587 out there, doing rake the lawns and doing community outreach, selling other popcorn, meeting neighbors, collecting bottle cans and things of that nature. So I had a lot of involvement within the school that my son attended. Lessinger, go Red, Road Runners. So we did a lot at Lessinger, so I was on the parent committee there, helping out, and any time that they needed something and my time allotted me to do that is where I was at. Do I wish that I had done more for the city? Certainly, but I'm sure I was trying to advance my life at that time.
Were you, before you answer, I'm sorry, because you said something I'd like to follow up with a little bit. Were the three of you, did you apply to go on the Citizens Academy, or were you invited as candidates?
We were invited. Well, I was invited.
Yeah, we were invited to do it. It was, so the city manager, I don't want to say she sent it out, but it was, I recall receiving something that went out to all of us,
Yes.
recommending we
Okay.
at least check into it.
Yes.
I myself went through the original Citizens Academy, and we had to make application and be accepted. We were not invited.
Well, to
So
be
you had to
fair,
show an interest
Well,
to do
to
it.
be fair, they also, they took open application. It wasn't just like,
Okay.
that we're invited to apply for it. I don't think we
Yes.
got automatic entry
Okay.
into it, just to be clear. It wasn't like, hey, you're automatically in. It was like,
Okay.
I highly
Well,
recommend
that was
it.
my misunderstanding when you said
Yes,
that.
yes.
Okay.
So, and it is
It
a
was-
fantastic program to get to know the city. We're going through it right now, and it's phenomenal to
It
learn
is,
about the inner workings and answer a lot of questions as how everything happens.
Okay. I'm sorry, Bill?
It was canceled last year, so,
Yeah.
no, there was an opportunity to get involved, and Melissa did let.
That's okay, okay.
Yeah, Melissa did let me know that it was gonna be back on this year, and I filled
Yeah.
out an application. So we still went through that application process, but she let us know that it was gonna be back this
Okay.
year.
How about the question? What
Okay.
have, yeah,
Well, if you're gonna, so when I first moved here in 1991, shortly thereafter, I signed my kids up to play baseball in the city. And my one son got a call from his coach like the next day, and then 2 weeks went by and didn't hear anything about my other son. So I called the hotline and I left a message on the hotline saying, hey, we're new to the city. I signed my one son up. He got a call. My other son didn't get a call. Did I do something wrong? I was wondering why he doesn't have a coach. Is there anything I can do to help? I want to be part of the city. The president called me the next day and said, how would you like to coach the team? And I said, I'm in. So for 27 years, I've been working with Little League Baseball in the city. And up to the day the president died, he said I was the only one that ever left a message on the hotline that wanted to help. Everyone else wanted to call and complain. So, so I've been involved in Little League Baseball forever. Did Cub Scouts at Hiller Elementary School. Worked with a recreation program doing baseball, and I'm being told to wrap it up. So, so you said not school, but I've been part of the Athletic Booster Club for over 20 years. So,
thank you.
yeah,
I'm
thanks.
sorry, the reason we're wrapping it up is because we've hit the 5 o'clock mark.
Yep.
And
right.
this makes
Got it.
our 2 hours on YouTube. Again, thank you, everybody. I'd like to give the audience an applause and the candidates an applause. Yay! And our moderators. Woo! Thank you, everybody, for coming. This will be on YouTube. It's announced on the websites where the link is. I hope you got all your questions answered, and if you don't, everybody here has emails, and they've got some campaign literature up here. Please feel free to take it, and I think our candidates who were no-shows really missed an opportunity today, so thank you for being here. All righty, that's it.